Hey guys, so today on my DIY, I'm going to show you how we're going to actually install a manifold and turbo blanket from PTP. It's going to be interesting, it's not going to be easy, but hopefully I have a few tips and tricks that may work and help you out. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we want to remove whatever intake system you have installed on the car. Doesn't matter. Includes the heat shield as well. You need to maximize the clearance in order to get your hands in there. But yeah, let's get to it. Alright guys, so intake is off. I prefer to use tape over the intake inlet. Mainly because you can always forget a rag. The tape, you have to take it off before you reinstall everything. Makes a little bit more sense. Now, when you're looking at the actual manifold, you have the shield right above it. We're gonna go ahead and take that off because we're trying to keep this as simple as possible. And another thing we're gonna have to take off as well, there is a mounting bracket below the turbocharger. So, let's see if we could get it in there. This is hard to see. I can't tell. Should be able to see it right there. Alright, let's see what we got. Alright, so I went ahead and took the top cover off. And I did it because I wanted to take the O2 harness loose from the actual valve cover. And then I took off the heat shield. There's a total of 4 bolts holding those on, and they are 13 millimeter. And then on the underside, I took that bracket loose. So I took out the bolt that actually hooks up to the bottom of the turbocharger, and then I took one bolt completely out and loosened the last one. You can kind of sort of see the last one still hanging in there, and the other one is completely out. So it's just hanging there. I didn't want to take it completely out because it'd be a little bit easier to put back together when it's all said and done. And then as far as the safety wire goes, that's going to be used to secure this, you're going to get a bundle like that. You could use a single strand. I prefer not to, so I twisted a pair. So there should be more than enough to utilize doing it this way. Anyways, this strand is actually going to be for the turbo blanket itself. And yeah, so I'm going to show you in the next clip on how I'm gonna fish it. Alright, so this is what I came up with. For that single roll, I did do the pair and I did twist it. I did cut off. It looks like about, I don't know, 6 inches, maybe a little bit less. And then at the very end, the end that I did cut off this section, there was a loop on it still. So what I went ahead and did is use my safety wire pliers to bring that hoop in just a little bit more, or that loop, and that way it's not going to come off when I'm trying to fish it through. On the back section, there really isn't, I didn't see the way that it needed to be, so we're just going to kind of experiment with this once I get it on the car. Alright, so I use those needle nose, very long, to fish the back section of the blanket. I took basically both of these safety wires. I actually pulled them both through this opening in the exhaust manifold, and now what I'm doing is taking them around the actual turbine housing so they can be tied up once it's in order. Alright, so I got the turbo blanket on. Things to remember here is that I fished the safety wire through this opening in the manifold, and then I just pretty much pulled it all the way around. Another thing I had to do was take the turbo bracket on the bottom completely loose. It just kept getting in the way. And then once I did get it fished through, I left the safety wires through the top, and then I started maneuvering this part of the blanket around the turbo. Remember, I did have a piece of safety wire for that section already attached. Pulled it through. It's not going to go all the way around it, so just keep that in mind. It's still pretty far back there, but once that's through, I went ahead and looped it around this stud and then put tension on it. Once I got tension on that, I did one wrap, and then I went ahead and took the safety wire, the two safety wires that were coming through this port. One went this way and one went that way, coming out underneath the manifold. The reason why I did that is because I don't want the safety wire on the actual turbine housing itself. It needs to be on the blanket. At least that's what I believe in theory. So the wire is not touching the actual manifold. None of the cast stainless, okay? So I'm going to snip these down after I'm completely installed with the manifold blanket as well. Alright guys, so here's the manifold blanket. As you can see, I got the safety wire attached to the underside of the blanket, because what we're going to do is we're going to fish these wires up through the basically the manifold spacing in between the ports. Each safety wire, I only did single strand. However, I did twist them with loops on the end, and I did tighten them to where they're not going to come loose. We don't want these coming loose while we're trying to do the install. Each wire before I looped them was about 15.5 inches long. That's pretty much all I could get out of the little wire bundle that PTP sends with these kits. I would have preferred springs, but I'm assuming there's good reason why they didn't do that. Alright guys, so the manifold blanket is staged, kinda, sorta. Anyways, so I went ahead and fished through the safety wires. There's 5 of them. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all I gotta do is finish moving the blanket in and just pull on the wire and should be good to go. Alright, so I got the manifold blanket on. I didn't trim off the access safety wire. I just kind of looped it around the way to where it's out of the way, because I don't know, I may rearrange it, but I highly doubt it at this point. One thing to keep in mind, you will have to remove your O2 sensor to get the blanket on. You could try to do it with it on, but it doesn't make any sense. It just makes it that much more harder. And then getting the O2 sensor back on is a little bit of a bitch, but it works. This is pretty much fully installed, and now I just need to put back on the heat shield and everything else. All right. Okay, here's the complete install. Everything's been reinstalled, minus the intake. It is doable on the car, and if I didn't have as much trial and error as I had, it would have took me about an hour to do it. It took me real time about an hour and a half to kind of document as I go and some trial and error. All right, so everything is back together. Both blankets are on. Intake's back on. Everything's tidied back up. Looks good. I will have a thermal imaging camera to kind of test the difference between this one, which does have it, and this one that doesn't have it. Should be quite a difference.